Hello, good afternoon and good morning, and welcome to QA Financial's seminar in our series 2021 Vision. This is a series of seminars we're looking forward over the coming year at the priorities that our panelists have for different areas of software development and quality assurance. And today we're focusing on mobile apps, and we're going to be covering a variety of topics. But we've got a great panel. That's the most important thing. We have Robbie Paschal from Capital One. We have MacNeil from Source Labs. We have Edson Ferreira from Lloyds Bank. We have Thompson from Aviva. We have Ashok Kumar from Tide, which is I shall tell you a little bit more about Tide in a minute, but it's a UK-based challenger business bank. So a super panel, and I'll let the panel introduce themselves a little bit more fully as they first speak. We're going to be covering a variety of topics over the next hour, and we do invite you to join the conversation. You can see there's a live Q&A button on your screen. Please, if you have a question you'd like to put to the panel, just write the question there, and I'll put it to the appropriate panelists or all of the panel towards the end or at the right time during the course of the conversation. But please do ask the questions that you have, but also share any experiences or thoughts that you have. So there's also another button top left. When you return to your timeline for this event, you can see a button that says visit the virtual event. Go there and join Source Labs at their virtual stand. You can download marketing content, white papers and videos, and there's also a button there that enables you to start a conversation with Source Labs. Please do visit their stand. Source Labs is the gold sponsor for this particular session. Broadcom is our series sponsor, so I'd like to thank both Source Labs and Broadcom for their support. So we're going to dive straight in now. We've got a great topic to talk about. And I think, Robbie, we'll start with you, please. If you can tell us a little bit about your role at Capital One, but then talk perhaps about the priorities you have for this coming year in mobile app quality testing and delivery. I think you're on mute, Robbie.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name's Robbie Paschal. I'm currently heading up the mobile quality engineering practice and the new product tribe quality engineering at Capital One. I'm focused on the agile delivery of customer-centric credit card products. They're across mobile, web, and back-end services. I'm also actively seeking to advance the mobile test engineering practices, improve the software quality of our apps. We're working towards increasing the productivity of our mobile teams. So the priorities for myself and our teams in mobile in 2021 are overcoming challenges of scaling up our mobile engineering teams across locations. So that's an environment where new features are continually shipped. So now we need to get our app set for the future so we can continue to scale and make our app easier and safer to work with. Another area is capabilities around our app UI testing. This is always our focus because this is key to the productivity of our mobile teams and the quality of our releases. So we want to improve our test coverage, the pipeline reliability, and our feedback time. So these are all things that are really important to us. And we have projects that are in flight to refactor our UI tests. So our tests are as effective as they can be, but also to improve our mocking solution for our UI tests. So we want to be able to dynamically change our API responses during our tests, and also we want the capability to add contract tests to build confidence in our integration testing early in the life cycle. Finally, accessibility testing. This is a really important area for us. It's key that our features work for all users and that they meet the accessibility regulations and guidelines. what we've observed over the last few years is that accessibility testing is our most error-prone area of our life cycle, but it's also one of the most manual parts of our delivery as well. So we need to get some focus on this, and we're starting to look at tools around what can help. We've experimented with tools in the past. One of the challenges has been from experiences, false positives with accessibility testing. There's tools that we've used where reports have been produced, and there could be lots of false positives. So it would take our team time to go through those to find out which are actually true defects that we need to fix. We've also used capabilities in Expresso and XCUI. We found them to really lack the coverage that we need. So at the minute, we're going to evaluate the market. There's a tool called Events, which is an AI-fueled digital accessibility platform, which weaves the testing into software development, the design, the development, the automated testing, and the monitoring.
What's the big challenge?
So this is one of the tools I'm quite excited about at the moment.
In the past, Robbie, what's the key challenge in accessibility testing?
I guess if our app's now about 5 years old, and when we first started looking at this, the guidelines and the regulations for apps wasn't really around, or there was quite minimal at that point. It was mainly the guidelines were mainly around the web requirements, so we kind of had to convert those to mobile. And then we realised that iOS accessibility platform is much more advanced than the Android. The Android Android guidelines are more difficult for us to apply. So we can often debate what are the requirements.
I mean, across your client base, are you seeing similar challenges?
Absolutely. We're hearing a lot about accessibility testing. So I'm Jane MacNeil. I'm the Director of Product Operations here at Sauce Labs. And so I provide some oversight for our product teams to make sure that the different offerings that we have within our portfolio work well together and they're well known by our customers. One of the big things at Sauce is that we're really focused around digital confidence, and this is something that we want all of our customers to be able to achieve. And increasingly, that means that there need to be different considerations for tooling that's outside of just traditional testing. So we're thinking a lot about the DevOps testing tool chain, all of the different areas that are tangential to automated testing, all throughout DevOps, and how we can best support making sure that we're getting signal from all of those lines and that it's cohesive and it's well known and understood and easy for people to manage when they're going through these digital transformation efforts. So I was excited when we were doing prep calls for this because a lot of the topics that the other panelists are bringing up are certainly things that we're seeing across our customer base. And everybody's coming at it from a different level of maturity. And so, you know, setting a high bar with customers that are at that digital lead is pretty important to be able to share that back with people that are tackling these challenges.
Yeah, and accessibility testing is high on the agenda for the reason that Robbie mentioned. I mean, technically, the requirements being updated. There's a big compliance issue. There's also, you know, the Biden administration is expected to be much more supportive of legislation, the Americans with Disabilities Act, that supports, you know, the compliance requirements, of course.
Do you know, actually, I would just say this. I had a great conversation with one of my bigger insurance customers, and I won't mention this by name, but I was struck. It was like shortly after the death of George Floyd, and he had raised this issue that he wanted to pursue accessibility testing because he felt like this was actually an area where he could provide some type of meaningful help to make the world a little bit more fair. And it was nice to hear that there was this other motivation in place that was outside of compliance, and I think it made their work quite a bit more meaningful. But certainly not without challenges, right? I mean, it deals with much more complex requirements than you're getting out of just traditional mobile testing around voice and visual pieces. So, yeah. That's it.
And what would you say is the number one, aside from accessibility testing, the number one challenge in UX that your customers are facing? I mean, expectations have changed because of COVID and increased use of mobile apps, I guess. But what's actually changed?
I think it's that we're trying to readdress something that's been platformed. So this point that Robbie brought up is like, it's a 5-year-old app. If you're dealing with something that's a 5-year-old app and now you're trying to layer this in, you're probably uncovering a little bit of potentially tech debt, right? That you need to maybe even readdress at that point. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's a revisit, right?
Good. Robbie, we talked. We talked about accessibility testing. We talked about the challenge of moving, legacy apps forward. Now, Ashok, Tide doesn't actually have that same challenge because you're a new firm, but you do have the challenge, obviously, of accelerating the delivery of your projects products from scratch. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. As you mentioned that, let me quickly introduce myself to the audience. Hello, everyone. I'm Kumar Ashok, working as a senior QA engineer at Tide. And my area of expertise is functional test automation, and having nearly 15 years of experience in the IT industry, mostly with testing. And the responsibility of me, along with my team members, and our team name itself is called Autobots, from the bots and automation. And our responsibility is pretty much to bring efficiency and improve productivity in overall software testing and hence development. So for the global audience outside UK who may not have heard about us before, for Tide, Tide is UK's one of the leading digital business banking platform. We launched our app in 2017, and since then we have been enriching our members' business banking experience with new and exciting features. And those features include opening business accounts within minutes, doing payments, doing your team expenses, invoices, automated transaction matching, and many more. And as Matthew mentioned, that we are one of the challengers in UK. So that itself comes with a challenge of accelerating and be first with the features. And being the new to the industry, that simply means we have to adapt to the changes much faster. And the only way to adapt to the changes faster is pretty much to release faster. So we had our share of challenges before, but we are guided with two North Star goals, I would say, from engineering perspective, that we release with 0 member defects and we release when we wish. So these are our North Star goal. We are not there yet, but we have done quite a bit. We started this journey in 2019 from quality perspective. We have done quite a bit towards that. And pretty much in 2021, our goal is to achieve release every week, which we achieved in 2020. 2020, we did release every 2 weeks, and I'm very glad to share that we have not missed a single release. We have not postponed a single release. So every 2 weeks, we were able to bring new features to the market. And now, with that confidence, we want to reduce it further, and we want to release to the market every week. So that is one. And as you would know, as we are rushing to the market, that itself comes with a challenge of the quality. And this is where our second North Star goal comes into picture, that is 0 member facing defect. So at one side, we are speeding our release frequency. On the other side, we are talking about 0 member facing defect. That puts a lot of challenge in from the quality perspective. So as I mentioned, that we have done quite a bit. In 2020, we brought down regression testing cycle from 3 weeks to 1.5 day. 1.5 day to 2 day, I would say. And that includes both automated and manual. With automated execution, it completes in pipeline or Bitrise pipeline. And if you have used Bitrise in your pipeline before, you know that it allows you only 90 minutes from build to execution. So we had this challenge to complete our regression automation within 45 minutes. So pretty much all of our automated tests run on 21 parallel devices within 45 minutes, and we are able to complete end-to-end UI testing. And there are certain aspects of other manual testing that continues, right? So we want to reduce it further down to 1 day, and that's how we will be able to meet our goal of releasing every day if we have to, right? So we have taken this principle to core of our heart, which says quality is everyone's responsibility. So it is not only automation that we have put in place to achieve this. With automation, we can increase the speed, but not the quality. So in order to improve the quality, it's everyone's responsibility in Tide. and within a sprint, I'm very glad to say that it's very hard to achieve that. We have achieved it, the Pareto principle, 80-20. So 80% of the stories are being tested by the developers. And 20% of the story within the sprint, which are considered as business critical or which needs compliance, that's where someone like me who has expertise in QA or someone from my team would get involved and do those testing. Otherwise, it's all developers driven by BDD. They would do their testing, right? So in that way, we are blurring the lines. So that we achieved in 2020. Now we want to blur that line even further. So what I talked about is process, but we also really care about the people at side. So that's the second line that we are focusing in 2021, is to improve our developers capabilities within the QA community. So pretty much we are bringing QA closer to the code, where we will be involved in the producing developer test. So essentially, whatever gain we have made in 2020 by doing automation, now we are reinvesting that gain into further automation, but at the lower level of development. So pretty much our focus will be on contract testing, API end-to-end testing, service level testing. So these were related to various processes. But at the same time, we have to manage our risk as well when we are going so fast to the market. So we are also looking for canary releases. So a few of you may be aware of this term. So in old days, canary birds were used in the coal mines to make sure that if there are any dangerous level of gas which has reached, so canary birds, they would stop singing, of course, because they will be pretty much killed by those dangerous level of gas. So that's how the coal miners would be alerted. So fortunately, no one is going to get physically harmed in this case, but idea would be to roll out a limited number of user to check the pulse, how the things are. If we are all okay and we are not dying, that simply means we roll out it to the further people. So in that way, there are many aspects where we are making our features go to the market faster, ensuring that we are making the quality better, and also ensuring that we have particular guardrails in the place. So there are many things which are happening right now and in 2021.
Okay, thank you very much. Chris, can we come to you and can you tell us a little bit about your priorities at Aviva? I should imagine that voice technologies are quite high up your list as an insurance company.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Chris. I look after all of our mobile apps and all of our web content and websites within Aviva. And we have a number of apps, and we have one primary app, which is our My Aviva app, which is our customer servicing app. And, you know, we're faced with a number of challenges, particularly, you know, the biggest one being providing a compelling composite view. You know, Aviva does pensions as well as general insurance and life insurance. And trying to get all of those things into one proposition is quite a challenge. And also releasing that at a regular pace to customers with you know, reasonable functionality that they can use is a particular challenge. And you know, we're not talking about a few hundred users here. We're talking about millions of logins per month rather. And you know, that's quite a challenge. And obviously, providing that level of native capability is also an additional challenge on top of that. But to Ashok's point around the automation and testing, you know, we spent a lot of effort making sure that happens. We've in 2020 we released, I think, 64 versions, so just over one a week. And that was, you know, that's not just small updates, that's key updates to customers. And yeah, we've increased our audience by around about 100% in the last 12 months, and we aim to do that yet again in 21. But to your point around voice, you know, voice is something that we've dipped our toe in a few years ago, really, with creating true voice skills, and it's certainly where we think, you know, the market is going, and where customers are utilizing those skills. You know, it's become quite a thing now for most households to have voice capability. How do you communicate pension and general insurance skills into voice? It's not easy, but we are looking at how we do that. We're also, you know, we're a big believer in user testing, so we do a lot of upfront research and get real customers into labs and actually find out what they really want, and that's really key to how we develop. I think the other point that's worth mentioning is to enable that rapid development cycle and constant releasing. What we've created is a mobile platform. We have a technology that we use in the background, but we've got core components that can be reused, not just within a single app, but across a suite of apps. And backing that up is a design framework as well. So that allows us to have clear core components that just work. They're off the shelf. They can be picked up and used. And that's reduced our cosmetic bug testing and cosmetic defects by around about 85%, which is huge. And the number of tests that we automate now through various different processes, we can reduce some of those tests because we know very confident that our cosmetic bugs are not going to be there, and we can focus really on the true code bugs that we need to solve.
You mentioned a couple of things I'd just like to ask you quickly about there, Chris. First of all, it's a fantastic increase in the number of users. We've had 100%, I think you said, over the last few months. Does that, we've seen financial firms of all sizes encountering performance problems. We've all been reading about the stock exchanges that have stopped working, for example. But is load testing, performance testing, a particular challenge for Aviva in the context of this increased demand?
Not particularly. I think because of the size of the business, and we know that we have a huge web audience. It's over at least double what we see on mobile, still on web. Although that is now sort of leveling out. We're seeing much more cross-platform use. We don't have a clear web user or mobile user. They are both, but there's much more affiliation with mobile now. But yeah, capacity planning is at the heart of what we do. We can't afford to not give a service to a customer. So it was really the base model of what we built our mobile platform on. Yeah. So, we can accommodate for higher numbers of users as we need it. And when we see peaks, we know that there's specific activity going on, particularly around things like share prices changing and the stock market activity being, having fluctuations. We see that activity reflected in our pension and our ISA products.
Okay. And there was one other question. You talked about researching, talking to your customers about what they want. Well, I'd really like to hear, what do they want? Is the 5G era changing expectations, or is it really, when you're talking about what customers want, that switch to mobile away from web?
I think that what this is going to sound flippant, but customers want things to be done for them. They want that true utility. They don't want to put the effort in. They don't want to have to think about what they're doing. And I think that's been quite well articulated in banking apps. The difference between a traditional banking service where you walk in to see a cashier to being able to, transfer money, view your accounts from essentially touching your thumb on a screen. We've simplified so many of these capabilities that's now an expectation, and it's not a dramatic expectation. It's unforgivable. If we can't deliver it at pace and with simplicity, customers will go away, and we're very aware of that, and we see that through our feedback. And it's almost kind of comical sometimes when people say, "Why isn't it that simple?" And actually, yes, there is there's a whole process behind making something simple, but that's not what customers see. And me as a customer, I want those things to happen as well. I don't want to have to struggle. So the heart of it is making it easy and making it intuitive.
Good, thank you, Edson. That segues really nicely to you because, of course, we've just been talking about how the insurance world is perhaps following the banking world. What is the state of the art in the banking world? What is the state of the challenge for large banks like Lloyds, retail banks?
Sure, thank you. So I'm Edson Ferreira. I'm head of engineering for the mobile platform, and I also, as part of the mobile platform, run the web platform, essentially part of the digital platforms, and we are a center of excellence when it comes to engineering. providing the SDKs and the web frameworks and all the different modules that are then reused by all the other value streams. And in a nutshell, that basically allows us to have within the mobile platform a capability that threads new path and builds on capability that then is utilized across the entire LBG. And essentially, we've been very successful, particularly today I've received the news that we've won an award from the European Software Testing that basically it's the best mobile platform testing award, which is absolutely remarkable. We are very, very delighted. And in a nutshell, as coming back to your question from the perspective of the challenges that we're facing into, I think legacy is definitely one of the big ticket items, in the sense that we, as the biggest digital bank in Europe, with 4 million logins on a daily basis, essentially need to make sure that we are providing customers with as much value as we can, but at the same time in a way that it's very much risk-free. So with that in mind, we've been very much investing our time and our effort into shifting left. And by shifting left, I mean trying to get our release cycle from what it was before 4 weeks, now at 3 weeks, and now the next OKR for the teams is going to be around 2 weeks, and that is going to involve a number of activities to support and to facilitate all of that, and bringing into equation best practices like the ability to have environments, lower environments closer to the development teams that are configured with as much proximity to what a pre-prod environment would be, both from data to third-party integrations, and just to allow the teams to be able to replicate what typically you would get in a pre-prod environment. Furthermore, I think one of the other challenges that we're very much looking into is this idea of autonomy, and we want to make sure that we provide the different divisions within Lloyds with as much autonomy as possible, but doing it in a responsible way, by also making sure that alignment coexists with everything that they do. So as we in an agile environment, it's very much important for us to keep the right gateways to mitigate any kind of potential defect leakage into production, but at the same time allow these teams to release as fast and as possible as they possibly can.
One of the questions, thanks, Edson. One of the questions we've had from one of the member of the audience is, what are the tools you're using for test automation, and what decisions are you making versus proprietary tools, vendor tools? I'll expand that to open source as well. But when you talk about autonomy and also spreading best practice, the challenge of combining those two objectives across your different businesses, the stakeholders in app delivery, what sort of level of autonomy do people in Lloyds have when it comes to tooling, for example? And is that changing?
Well, that's one of the areas that I think it's important to for alignment to prevail rather than autonomy, because when it comes to these kind of third-party contracts, they get expensive pretty quickly, given our size and the sheer volume that is associated with our operation. So from that perspective, when it comes to tooling, we're very much, as mobile platform, we are the owners and custodians of all of those things that are essentially cross-cutting. So from analytics tools to for tools for testing, and we use Perfecto for that matter. Then the ability to basically make sure that these tools have a federated lens into this, meaning we don't want to be kind of like the funnel on which everything stops, but essentially we want to make sure that within each one of the divisions, there is a group of people, a guild of engineers that is responsible for also informing and allowing us to make decisions, taking everybody else's needs into account. So it's not as if we dictate these things. It's very much a collaborative approach to decision making with mobile platform at the center.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about was I know that Lloyds has been one of the leaders in the UK, if not the leader in the application of voice technology to customer-facing apps. Testing has always been a challenge here, and it continues to be a challenge. What is the state of the art again in testing voice, testing chatbots?
Sure. So at this stage, it's still early days, but we're very much heavily committed to taking advantage of new technologies as they come. I know for a fact that our contact center uses some very advanced technology to recognize and to match your voice. So when you call into a Lloyds contact center, we can tell with a certain degree of certainty that it is you, in fact, that is speaking on the phone, and that allows us to just make sure that we have another layer of security and risk mitigation every time a customer calls and speak with us, purely because somebody might have all of your right details, and therefore we have very little protection against the ability of that person having stolen your identity. But with this kind of controls and with this kind of technology, we have a very important ability to be able to say when somebody calls and asks for assistance and wants to do business with us, we are very well positioned to say, this is you, in fact. But furthermore, there's other areas where we are exploring voice testing. But like I said, it's still early days, and we are in the beginning of the potential that comes along with voice testing.
I'm sorry, Matthew, can I ask just a quick question of Edson? What you were talking about with having specific platforms, but not necessarily locking down or dictating. And this is something that I hear about from most of my customers, actually. How do you keep these, how do you keep the signal straight across these various different business units and groups? What is your overall strategy for analytics to measure the performance of these types of programs?
Yeah. So the main thing is adopting a collaborative approach to decision making, meaning from the moment that we have a problem statement and the moment that we look either at a challenge or an opportunity within the context of the mobile and web space, obviously we provide some thought leadership, and then we get together on a bi-weekly basis in kind of like a collaborative meeting where all the different divisions take part with us, and we present clear problem statements and decisions that are due to be made, and we provide alternatives, and we allow people to basically feed into the decision-making process. So from that perspective, it's absolutely fundamental to keep all of the troops informed, if I may say it that way, of any kind of decision or any kind of change coming down the pipeline, so as to make sure that alignment is something that it's achieved by collaboration rather than being imposed by a central function mobile
so
platform.
Jane, to your question, there is a certain process that we follow, which kind of aligned to what Edson mentioned, collaboration. So how we achieve that in Tide, that we have a particular process called Tech Radar, which is owned by a similar cloud engineering team, which is our platform team. And pretty much, as Edson mentioned, that there is no dictation about that, but it is all about making informed decision. So we maintain that Tech Radar, and it gets refreshed as early, like every quarter, every 6 months, depending upon the need. And pretty much we do a workshop with all the teams. So it's not like one optional meeting where you are welcome to come. If you don't want to come, you don't come. But pretty much you need to be part of that session so that you provide your input, you provide your information, so that it helps the whole organization, right? So as Edson was mentioning that like licensed tools can be very expensive. And if I don't know that, let's say, for example, analytics, I have Looker I'm using, but at the same time, someone suggested Tableau. But if I didn't know that Looker was already existing, then I'll just go for Tableau, and I'm paying a license fee, not utilizing either of them. So I think collaboration, as Edson mentioned, that it is very important, but also to refresh that collaboration. It should not be just like one-time activity, and that happens once in 2 years, and then there is a big project called tool optimization project, right? So a Tech Radar is what we use, and we are very happy, and we are able to limit the tools in that way.
We so just to follow up on that, we take a slightly different approach in that we are very much a customer first model. You know, we use data from what our customers are telling us from multiple channels, and they tell us, you know, it can either be through telephony. We have feedback forms. We've got app feedback. We've got OS scores and other methods of getting that data out of customers. That essentially forms a lot of our backlog. We then verify with the business, and the business will always have new propositions or new ideas, but ultimately we are driven by customer demand. And that's really how we succeed with customers, because, you know, I don't want an OS score to go down. I want it to go up. And the only way I'm going to do that is by answering their problems. So we've moved to that model from just that, you know, someone in the business going, oh, I've got a great idea, which isn't validated.
Yeah. I think that's great that you're using signal from your customers, and we're strongly encouraging our customer base. We've been in the shift left business forever, but we're talking increasingly a lot about shifting right and making sure that we're observing like a current actual state of things. And one of those things that we want people to bring in is customer experience. And we want people to think about that when they're starting to test and in everything that they do. It's like there needs to be a purpose behind this. So I like this because it's transparency at all different levels. Like the transparency of decision making, I think, is pretty important. Transparency around your customer activity is pretty important, and, you know, just stringing this together. Yeah, that's the prevailing theme of how you're seeing DevOps, you know, mature. Sorry, Robbie, I cut you off.
So you mentioned like shift right, and I thought that was an interesting point to explore a little bit more. I know in this event today, we've talked a lot about releases and people increasing release cadence. But one of the challenges that we faced when we moved to fortnightly releases recently was we like to validate our features in production before they go to customers. So our teams would test those features in the live environment before we ship them. So I'm interested to see how the other teams here are focusing on production validation and monitoring when you're releasing so quickly, and how that works.
So that's a strategy that we are working right now. So as of now, our idea is to have a beta staff and a beta member. So that essentially means that first, as soon as we are ready for our production release, that same version goes to our production support team first, where they do kind of a smoke testing or a smoke checkout, that you would say, which immediately tell if the things are ready to go further or not. So after that happens, we are working on the beta staff program. So that simply means our associates who are in London based, and we are taking the phased approach as well. So for example, I have a Tide account. So that simply means I can go to different features. And that also brings in the point that we have been discussing about usability and also about accessibility, not as much, but I would say user experience. So within our what we call is dojo, QA dojo, we have people who are aligned to different business area. So idea is to bring, for example, someone from payments and ask them to test about financial services without giving them the test steps. So pretty much from a member's perspective, they know they have app, and I just tell them objective that, yes, this is the financial aspect of what you need to see in the app. If they are able to navigate through the app and able to perform that objective, then it will be a success that, yes, member will be able to do so as well. So that gives us both. First, we are able to validate it from the member's experience perspective, and also we are able to validate if things are going fine or not. So that is our...
Yes, I think that's it. The key stage of testing is to validate that the feature works before it goes to users.
So we validate that as a real user, because we are talking about various feature toggles. So what if there was a feature toggle which was turned on or off? We don't want to embarrass ourselves in front of customers. So pretty much we as a customer will validate that first and then pretty much move on.
Okay. Jane, actually, I just wanted to turn your question back to you, actually. So what are you seeing in terms of the evolution of demand from customers, end users for mobile apps? What are our panel going to have to deliver in a year's time in terms of functionality?
I think it depends on where the customer is, right? And so we work with customers at various states of maturity all throughout the process. But what we're seeing from some of our digital leaders is that there's an increasing kind of commitment to making it easy for the devs to interact with these processes. So, if people are familiar with Sauce Labs, we grew up out of the Selenium and Appium space. Our co-founder, Jason Huggins, was one of the leads on the project for Selenium. So we've been living and breathing in this space for a while, but we've seen a shift in tooling for devs that make it quite a bit easier. I think Robbie had even mentioned XUI tests and some of the things around native frameworks. We want to make things much more, devs want tools that are super fast, super easy. They don't want to have to worry about, they don't want things that are cumbersome because they want to be focused on innovation and delivering and building great products. So from Sauce Labs perspective, we're trying to make it easy to get that signal from across different tooling. And we want to be sensitive to that. We don't want to just mandate the thing that we know. We want to be able to expand so that we're making a level playing field. Because for us, the most important thing is that quality has a voice. It doesn't just traditionally sit with one group. It has to be owned by everybody in the organization, which means it needs to have a mechanism for people to participate. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There is a question actually in the chat that I found quite interesting though.
There's a couple of questions there. You go ahead.
There's one specifically about security, and I think that there's a lot of different tooling options in that space, but having a really solid quality background or having a really good foundation will make some of these security concerns easier. So talking about, again, that shifting right piece, customers that get it right and that they are able to be proactive about this, they're able to manage when they're surprised by something. And I think that extends also into the security concerns as well. It's like you've got a nice, neat, organized way to respond to things.
So Robbie, let's circle back to you. There are a couple of questions. This one on security, and the question is, given that QA and security go hand in hand, in the DevSecOps era, in the DevSecOps world, what are the challenges and what are the parts or elements of the QA process that are most problematic in terms of mobile app security? You can answer that one if you like. Or there was also this question about tooling. What you partly answered that when you first spoke, but again, incorporating any views you have on open source tools in particular, but how you manage the platform. Any comments you have on that? You can choose which question you answer or both.
Yeah, sure. So in the first point on security, I guess from my perspective, it's around continually scanning the infrastructure and the software that's been shipped. So with every build, we scan the code and the infrastructure to make sure it's if we found any vulnerabilities, we can find them as soon as we can in the software development lifecycle. And I guess it's around collaborating and pairing with the security team so that we're building features that are inherently secure right from the start. And for example, through any sort of threat modeling, for example, so these are basic steps that are the start of feature refinement. And then I guess at the other end of the life cycle, there is kind of manual vulnerability testing, or some of the tools you could use to help support that. I know that we have quite a large focus on that before we go live, to make sure that we've tried to find any vulnerabilities within our APIs or applications that we can. So I would say really it's about prevention. So making sure we're building things that are secure from the start. And on the second point, on the tooling side, so I head up the mobile quality engineering community of practice at Capital One. We have principles like only use open source applications and software. And then around goals, around what we want to achieve, but also thinking about what are the gaps in our process, how we close them out, how do we evaluate tools as well within our group, just to make sure that we are working kind of with everybody being brought into the decision making. And with a few different exceptions, so for Caliban, based when we first started our app, we migrate native UI frameworks, XUI. These are collaborative making. That's really key for us in our all of our teams are process that we get in advance. So it's something that we take very seriously in our group, and it's something that we continue time.
Matthew, I think one of your questions was around, what are we going to be talking about in the future?
So we're always looking at tools, accessibility tools.
Okay, thanks, Robbie. Chris, please go ahead.
Sorry.
From a test process perspective.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that you asked was, what would this group be talking about in say 3 years' time? What would be the difference? And I think there wouldn't be a difference. We'd still be talking about the same things. These problems are pervasive. They don't go away. Testing, automation, budgets, stakeholders, audience, all those things are still relevant. Whether we're talking about, capabilities of LiDAR in damage assessment when we're looking at insurance claims, or whether we're talking about, mobile back in your pocket and being that future kind of view of where we take it. The problems that we're talking about today and the solutions that we're talking about around testing and automation, they're still going to be relevant. I don't think the conversation changes. I just think the application of what that conversation is talking about is slightly different.
I would agree with that. I know that there are some different innovations coming in the mobile space which may impact the UX standards. So, for example, like AR and full glasses may change how users kind of interact with the apps.
Yeah.
So there are a few things coming in the future that may disrupt the market.
Yeah. Cool. And if I may jump in here, I think from our perspective, one of the two challenges really that perhaps I would mention. The first one is related to the scarcity of security engineers. And it's remarkable how difficult it is to actually find good security engineers that can that know the trade and can actually do the job. And I think this is it's very it's a lot easier to find perhaps QA engineers, back-end engineers, front-end engineers than people that can actually do security. And I'm a firm believer in cross-functional teams that essentially have in them all the ingredients that are required for them to deliver from inception of idea all the way to production. But having said that, it's unfortunate that we are not able to find as many security engineers as probably we would need and that forces down a path where DevSecOps is more dev and ops working in parallel within the context of a cross-functional team. Then we have a smaller group of security engineers that are kind of like spread thin across multiple delivery teams and essentially have a backlog to go through, rather than being an integral part of a cross-cutting or cross-platform team. So from that perspective, though, that's one of the biggest challenges that I see. And then the other challenge is around this idea that we need to support older versions of operating systems, which means that we find ourselves in a predicament of not having some of the security controls that more modern versions of Android or iOS or modern browsers might have. So you find yourself in a bit of a predicament, having still a large populace of people still stuck in old versions of operating systems that do not have certain security features, and you find yourself having to circumvent those vulnerabilities by introducing custom software, basically provide that secure enclave.
It's a really good point. I actually really did like, Edson, your point about that there are limited people in the market that work within the security space and work well, but maybe that's something that we'll be saying in 3 years, is instead of quality is everybody's responsibility, which it is and it should be, and we should be in a position to take this for granted, but maybe it's security is everybody's responsibility. There's another comment in the chat from Eric Hart, who asked that original question saying teaching them threat modeling. So it's probably something that we need to align our cultures to, right?
Yeah. The other question, and you talked about security there, was about tooling, automated tooling. And when you were talking about managing mobile apps across the enterprise at Lloyds, you had already commented on, the sort of tension between autonomy in a management sense and autonomy in a tooling sense. But I was purely in terms of the technologies, what are there things that you're excited about in terms of new tooling and including open source tooling?
Well, I think Veracode is doing a very good job at enabling us to release with the confidence that if there's any security issues with our apps, we catch them before code gets merged upstream. So from that perspective, automating our CI/CD pipelines and putting built-in as part of the build process integration with tools like Veracode, it's just another lens to make sure that any security issues are identified, reports get dispatched to the relevant teams via MS Teams chats or whatever, and then from there things get actioned before any pull requests get merged into the
Ashok,
upstream branches.
Hear from you on any point you have on this, the question about security in particular, the challenge of embedding security in development.
Yep. So as Eric suggested, teach them threat modeling. So this is what we started last year with our security consultant, and it was a company-wide workshop. So as Jane was mentioning that not only QA is everyone's responsibility, but security is as well. And to a great extent, as you were mentioning, that it is all about the collaboration. So we always talk about the app security, and we talked about a lot in that. But one thing I want to emphasize, it's not only about the app, but also how we are building it, because pretty much our weak link in security could be when we are doing the security testing, as in our CI/CD pipeline, or when we are putting our data, test data to vendors. That could be very. So I'll just give you an example, right? So when we are using Perfecto for our device lab, a very secure platform, everything is secure, but at the same time, we cannot just rely on that, because we cannot just expose our backend database, let's say how the schema is, or we cannot expose our internal APIs. and our CISO, and because we are in very much collaboration with them, he said no first away, that you cannot send any test data which exposes our internal system. So that's where we need to be a little creative, and we came up with the idea of microservices, that whatever we do at the backend, whatever we do with API, we mask it using the microservices. There are two advantages of it. First, whatever we are using doesn't match at all with our internal system. It doesn't give any indication whether it is related to Tide, whether it is related to WIP, staging, and whatnot. Let's say if someone is able to crack that, the beauty of that is those microservices are test microservices. They never go to production. So that simply means even if it gets exposed, it doesn't cross the stage of the testing environment, which is all masked, all test data. So in that way, we are first of all masking the information. Second, the level of security that we are adding in our pipeline is to ensure that whatever we are using as the test artifact, it stops in the testing environment. No way it promotes into production.
Thank you. So we have just a few minutes left. I mean, thank you everybody for sharing so many of your thoughts with us already. But just as a parting comment, perhaps you'd like to sum up what your key challenge is, or again, how you expect how you're keeping expecting to keep your customers happy in this coming year. And perhaps I can suggest that we also think about the impact of COVID and the lockdown and what that's had on the way that you manage software quality, and that you think about that 5-star customer experience with mobile apps and what it means. Robbie, do you mind if we start with you? I mean, some comments in summary.
Yeah, sure. So focusing on how I was happy in some of the challenges that we've had during the COVID pandemic. I guess one of the areas that we're focusing on is kind of device compatibility testing. So that this was one of the things that we've been focusing on recently by running tests on emulators and simulators using the OS versions and devices that we support. So we've been running our UI tests on those with different device OS versions, for example, to help us mitigate that, because we don't have access to as many devices that we have in the past. So that's one way that we're making sure that we're releasing good quality features that work on our supported app versions. And I guess as we're looking forward, I guess one of the areas that we've probably not covered that much is like monitoring, to making sure we're monitoring users. That's something that's really important, to make sure we know actually how users are interacting with our features, and we're highlighting any issues early.
Thank you very much. And actually, you reminded me, we haven't even really talked about open banking and the impact there on the marketplace for the mobile apps and the technical demands on our mobile apps. Jane, would you like to share your part of your thoughts with us?
Yeah, just very quickly. I mean, I think we all saw that thing on LinkedIn where it was like, what's the major driver for your digital transformation? Your CFO, COO, CEO, or COVID-19? It's certainly true. And I've seen, banks and financial institutions who typically they move through decision making a little bit more slowly, and they've been, and getting into DevOps has been a massive cultural shift for them. Because they've had this reason to do so, we're seeing them react and respond much faster. And so the pressure on companies like Sauce is pretty high, because we want to make sure that our tooling manages and meets all of the needs that they have moving forward. And I think we're meeting that challenge, and pretty excited about supporting all of this digital transformation.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, look, echoing what everybody else has said so far, I think, we've all seen a higher digital demand through the last 8, 9, 10, I've lost count, months. But, and that's what customers are expecting, and they're expecting more of us now. I think we got a honeymoon period initially where people were like, yeah, okay, we accept that you're in the same boat, you've got to do it. But now they're expecting us, you've been doing this for a while now, you should know what to do. From our perspective, a traditional insurance businesses rely on a contact center, and a contact center that is usually traditionally manned by telephones. That's difficult to do in a lockdown scenario. So, one of the things that we're looking at is changing the way that our contact centers work with customers through modern messaging and that asynchronous chat style of interaction. But that's essentially what we've been forced to do, because that's what customers want from us.
Great. Edson.
Continuing on the journey of breaking the monolith and bringing Lloyds Banking Group into engineering best practices that involve us basically breaking with some of the more traditional ways of doing engineering, and but at the same time very much always have an eye on risk and resilience, and being able to make sure that those 4 million customers that need to log in every day are able to do so securely. And yeah, essentially that's it.
Thank you. So Ashok, the word to you.
Yeah. So for us, as Robbie mentioned, monitoring would be one of to look for, because definitely so far as a QA organization, we have been reactive. We want to be proactive in nature. We want to anticipate the problem and solve it even before it occurs. Monitoring is the only way we can achieve that. And second, for us, because we want to release early. So second is to find the early adopters, to go for the beta members, to engage the members to get involved. Our members are like, small businesses. They may not have a lot of time. So we are looking for a right strategy to engage with them. So pretty much these are 2 key challenges we are looking to resolve in future.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks to all of our panelists. It's been a great discussion, and we've covered a lot of topics very quickly, perhaps too quickly, but we do like to keep these seminars to an hour because we know that everybody's time is getting more and more compressed, especially as hopefully we near the end of that lockdown. But thank you, and please bear in mind that we have another seminar on the topic of APIs for open banking, which is coming up on the 27th of January. You're already registered for that. If you've joined this seminar, please join us again then. And if you would like to learn more about Source Labs and indeed have a chat with Source Labs, go to your timeline top left and click on the virtual exhibition button, and that will take you to their booth. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thanks, Matthew.